ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। रागद्वेषवियुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा prasadam adhigacchati. This person attains prasadam. Prasadam means prasada prasannata. One discovers that prasannata, that the joy or the happiness within, when ragadvesha viyuktaihi vishayaihi indriyaihi vishayancharan, when one contacts the sense objects with the sense organs which are devoid of raga and dvesha, devoid of attachment and aversion. This we discussed at great length in the last session as to how, earlier it was said, how when a person dwells upon the sense objects, that how the attachment arises, and then the desire arises, and anger arises, and how there is a whole ladder of fall merely by dwelling upon the sense objects. But there should be one qualification added there. When one dwells upon the sense objects with a mind which is under the spell of raga and dvesha, the mind in which there is this likes and dislikes, with that mind when we dwell upon the sense objects, then alone that dwelling will result into a liking and a desire and a craving and anger in all the subsequent calamities. However, when the mind is free from this raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion, then even when you contact the sense objects, they are not going to create any impressions on you, because you need something within yourself for the objects to create an impact. And that is this layer of likes and dislikes. Like a paper, when it has the coating of a chemical, and then that's what we call the photographic film. And when that is there in a camera, and then when you expose, well, the outside objects can create impressions upon that paper because there is a coating of the chemicals. But suppose in a camera you fill just plain paper, you can click any number of times and expose it to the outside objects, they will not have any impression at all. So for the impressions to be created, two things are required. Outside objects are also required, as well as something with the paper also is required. And similarly also, before the objects can create the damage, the contact, it's the likes and dislikes of our mind they also play a very important role. And therefore, it is not that we have to get rid of the objects. Really what we have to get rid of is raga and dvesha, the likes and dislikes. That is really vairagya. Vairagya or dispassion is not really creating merely a distance with the world or with the sense objects. It is called vairagya. Vairagya meaning viragasya bhavaha vairagyam. The state of mind which is devoid of raga or attachment. And by raga also is to be included dvesha. So a state of mind which is devoid of this raga and dvesha, attachment and aversion, that is called vairagya. And with that mind, even if you contact the objects, there is no problem at all. That will be really a healthy contact or an objective contact. Then those sense organs are atmavashyahi. Sense organs which are not under the spell of likes and dislikes, they are atmavashyahi. They are within the control of the self. Vidheyatma, and the mind also is at one's disposal, meaning one also has a mastery over the mind, because it is likes and dislikes which alone create distractions in the mind, which alone make the mind extrovert, they take them or drag the mind towards the objects. And when these likes, dislikes are not there, mind also is quiet, it is within one's control, sense organs are also within one's control. Prasadam adhigacchati, such a person attains prasadam, meaning prasannata. He attains a self-sufficiency, discovers a sufficiency or happiness from within oneself. That goes to show that what is it that really is an obstacle to experiencing the happiness of my own self. These likes and dislikes, that they are the only obstacles really. That as to stifle that natural happiness is stifled by the likes and dislikes. And as the obstacle of likes and dislikes goes to that extent, one discovers a happiness which is natural or uncreated. So a person like that doesn't have to make any effort to be happy because he discovers happiness which is the nature of the self. And therefore it was said, prasade sarvadukhanam hanihi asya upajayate prasanna chetaso shyashu buddhi paryavatishthate. When there is prasada, meaning prasannata of the mind, when the mind is happy or content naturally, because of obstacle in the form of likes and dislikes not being there, that happiness which is natural to the self then manifests in the heart. And that is the mind which can be an abiding mind. And that mind alone, buddhihi paryavatishthate, that knowledge also becomes abiding. So the mind which is free of likes and dislikes, meaning a pure mind, that becomes an abiding mind, that becomes an objective mind, it is that mind alone which can apply itself to the pursuit of knowledge, which can study the scriptures, listen to the teacher and understand what the scriptures say, and such a mind alone can gain the knowledge. In that mind alone the knowledge can be abiding. Buddhi paryavatishthate. That buddhi meaning the knowledge. The mind also becomes abiding. And then it dwells, it becomes what we call atmanishtham, centered upon the self. And sarvadukhanam hanihi upajayate. Ultimately, with the wisdom, one becomes totally free from all the dukkha or all the suffering. Because suffering is a product of ignorance. Pain, of course, is a fact of life. But grief, sadness or suffering is something that is created by ignorance. It's created only because of taking myself to be what I am not. And that alone is the primary cause of all the suffering, all the sadness. And that goes away for this wise man. The first step is prasadaha, meaning prasannata, the cheerfulness, happiness of the mind, which comes as a result of freedom from raga and dvesha, attachments and aversions. Now in the next verse 66, sayam prasannata stuyate, this very prasannata or this pleasantness of the mind, this clarity of the mind. Prasannata, as we say, means clarity. When the water is, when you remove all the dirt from the water, then water becomes clear. In a lake, for example, where the water is without any dirt, and when there is no disturbance on the surface of the lake, how that water very clearly reflects my face or reflects anything. And so also when the mind becomes devoid of this dirt of likes and dislikes, and becomes free from the distraction, that mind also becomes like the surface of that water, which very clearly reflects the self. And self, which is of the nature of happiness, gets clearly reflected in such a mind. And that is how we experience a happiness which is uncreated, which has no cause in terms of contact with the sense objects, but which is natural to the self. And therefore this prasannata, this clarity of the mind is extremely important. One must strive to gain that clarity of the mind. Mind is unclear, as we said, only on account of this impact of likes and dislikes. And therefore one must strive to make the mind free from his attachments and aversions. As we said, they have arrived again from ignorance. Not knowing the true nature of the self, one imposes happiness where it is not. One imposes unhappiness again where it is not. And where the mind imposes happiness, there is a natural attraction for that. Whereas where the mind imposes unhappiness, there is natural aversion for that. So even the attachment and aversions that a given mind has are also created on account of what we call superimposition. It is called Shobhanabhyasa in Sanskrit. Shobhana means Sarmaniyatvam. I see beauty or pleasantness somewhere, or I see the opposite of somewhere else. And that is how likes and dislikes or attachments and aversions are created. This also we should understand. That yes, we do find attachments and aversions within ourselves, but they are the products of superimposition of the mind. Mind itself superimposes the value upon the thing and then wants it. And mind itself brands something as bad and then wants to get rid of it. And such a mind is not an objective mind, meaning it doesn't see the things as they are. Therefore the clarity of the mind is extremely important. And therefore Lord Krishna in the verse 66, Sayam prasannata stuyate, that clarity of the mind is praised or extolled in the verse 66. Nasti buddhiriyuktasya nachayuktasya bhavana nacha bhavayata shantihi ashantasya kutas sukham. Nasti buddhi ayuktasya. Ayuktasya, the one who is not yukta. So yukta means one who is not a yogi. Asamahita antahkaranasya. What is antahkaranam? The mind is not samahitam, meaning one who does not enjoy a mind which is abiding. So ayuktasya, the person who does not enjoy an abiding mind, person who does not enjoy a clear mind, one whose mind is muddled with attachments and aversions, one whose mind is distracted because of that natural restlessness of the mind. So for such a mind, ayuktasya buddhi nasti. There cannot be buddhi, meaning there cannot be knowledge in the mind which doesn't have the clarity and which doesn't have a focus. So we require clarity as well as focus. We require freedom from these impurities. And likes and dislikes stand for all the negative tendencies of the mind. Because kama, krodha, lobha, moha, that kama means a passion or a strong desire, itself creates krodha, the anger. Itself creates lobha, the greed. Itself creates moha, the delusion. Itself creates mada, the pride. Matsarya, the envy. So pride, envy, jealousy, greed, delusion, all of these are ultimately products of only raga and dvesha. So these are the secondary products. So when we say the mind should become free from raga and dvesha or likes and dislikes, it means that mind will become free also from these other products of them, namely pride, envy, jealousy, greed. So when the mind becomes free from that, then alone knowledge is possible. Because what is knowledge? Knowledge is seeing the things as they are, that's all. The nature of the thing is unfolded by Upanishad, by the scriptures. And with the help of the unfoldment of the scriptures, all we have to do is to see the things as they are. See the self as it is, see the world as it is, or see God as it is. And that cannot happen if the mind, as we say, is not objective. When the mind itself has a distorted perception. The perception being distorted on account of these angularities, on account of these impurities, in general as they are called likes, dislikes, greed, passion, etc. Therefore it is said here, nasti buddhi ayuktasya. For the one who does not enjoy an abiding mind, one who does not enjoy a focused mind, meaning one who does not enjoy that pure and single-pointed mind. Buddhi nasti, atma swarupa vishaya buddhi nasti. That buddhi meaning the knowledge of the nature of atma swarupa. Knowledge of the self cannot take place in the mind. Perhaps in that mind other kinds of knowledge can take place. It is not necessary that the mind should be devoid of likes and dislikes to know mathematics or physics. Although to know that also, we require a mind which is focused. And mind that is committed to that pursuit of knowledge. However, pursuit of other forms of knowledge, what we call objective sciences, does not require a mind which is devoid of anger or something. A person can be an angry person, a greedy person, and still he can be a good scientist. Because anger, greed, etc. do not come in the way of his understanding of the objects. However, all of these things come in the way of understanding of the self. Because it is these things which alone make me superimpose upon myself various notions. And therefore it is necessary for the knowledge of the self that the mind must be clear of all the impurities. So Atma Suru Vishaya, for the one who does not enjoy that mind, this knowledge of the self cannot take place. Why is it so? How come knowledge of the self cannot take place in the mind that is not clear and not single-pointed? Because nacha ayuktasya bhavana. Again, ayuktasya, meaning again the person who doesn't enjoy that kind of a mind, which is pure or single-pointed, bhavana nasti. One doesn't have bhavana. Bhavana means abhinivesha, meaning commitment. So one will not have a commitment to this knowledge. In order for the knowledge of the self to take place, it is necessary to have a commitment. Commitment, what we call Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. And in order for me, it's not easy for me all the time to really be focused upon the pursuit of this knowledge of the self. Either listening or reflecting upon it or meditating on it, or anything that is only related. Is it possible for a person to be completely devoted to this? It's very difficult. Today we find it very difficult. I can perhaps spend 1 or 2 hours or some time after this, and then I need some distraction. I need to go out, I need to take walks, I need to watch something and what not. Because that steadiness of the mind is not there. Mind gets just bored, tired, exhausted, needs change. So bhavana, the total commitment which is required for the pursuit of knowledge cannot be there as long as mind is not free from these distractions. Mind is not free from attachments and aversions. It is not possible for that mind to commit itself single-pointedly to this pursuit. Sometimes it is in mood, well fine, then I can study Gita or Upanishad. But otherwise, I need other things. So that bhavana is abhinivesha, an earnest longing, as you might call it. It requires a longing of the mind for the knowledge. And that mind alone will have no other priorities at all. The only priority that this person has is pursuit of knowledge. Because the desire to know is so strong, because one has discovered the only thing that is lacking in life is knowledge. That whatever suffering or pain or whatever a person has been feeling, all the problems are only products of ignorance. And that knowledge is all that I want. When that firm commitment is there, then alone it is possible for oneself to pursue this at the exclusion of all other pursuits. That is called abhinivesha, commitment, an earnest longing. That cannot be if the mind is not pure. Obviously, if the mind has different passions and attachments, it will want those things. And how long can we keep those things away? For a period of time. Again they will register their need and will make me run after them. As I said earlier, yatato hyapi kaunteya purushasya vipaschitah indriyani pramatini haranti prasabham manaha. That even if a person who is viveki, who has this knowledge and who understands things and who is sincere also and who is striving also, again and again making the mind see the defects involved in the sense pursuits and sense pleasures, I make the mind again and again see, and even then, as long as the rasa or the longing is there, so long that very longing which is there in my mind, that raga dvesha, they drag my mind into those things. They pull the mind away from what it is doing and drag it pull it away and then ultimately drag it into the various objects. So I may be seated here all right, but my mind may be wandering someplace else because of that longing. So raga and dvesha, it was rasavarjam. Vishayaha vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam. That I can create a distance between myself and the sense objects. I can create a physical distance. I can abstain from enjoyment of the sense objects by my will. But the rasa or the longing for the sense objects does not go. And that is that longing which becomes a distraction whenever I try to focus my mind on something which requires a total focus or attention. So it is said, nacha yuktasya bhavana, that bhavana meaning abhinivesha, that total commitment, that earnest longing cannot be if the mind is not essentially devoid of these likes and dislikes, is not essentially clear. That mind must be essentially clear and single-pointed for it to have a longing. And then I will do anything. Then alone I can apply myself to Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, meaning listening, reflection, meditation, which are considered to be the main means of pursuit of knowledge. Nacha yuktasya bhavana, nacha bhavayata shantihi. And when that bhavana is not there, then bhavana also means knowledge. Unless one has the knowledge of the self, na shantihi, one cannot have shanti or peace. Unless I have the knowledge of the self, that is of the nature of happiness, I cannot be happy. The happiness that I can have perhaps can be from the sense objects, all right. But the real happiness that I am seeking, I cannot have. Nacha abhavayatah shantihi. Atmajnana abhinivesham akurvatah shantihi upashamah na vidyate. For the one who doesn't have that commitment or the longing for the knowledge of the self, shantihi upashamah na vidyate. The mind cannot be quiet, mind cannot be content. And so mind is still restless, still running after things. Ashantasya kutasukham. And when the mind is restless, when the mind is not quiet, ashantasya kutasukham, for such a person, how can there be happiness? Happiness cannot be for a person who does not enjoy a peace of mind. Shanti. Shanti means shamaha. Shamaha means an abiding mind. A mind, what was shamaha? Ichcha rahityam. That was shamaha. Shamaha is a mind which is devoid of ichcha, or ichcha means desire, which again means raga and dvesha. So mind that is devoid of likes and dislikes, that alone can be happy mind. As long as likes and dislikes are there, they will drag me into sadness. Because when I am attached to something, I want that thing. Absence of that thing creates sadness in me. And when I have aversion for something, I just want to get rid of that. Again, presence of that thing creates sadness in me. So this raga and dvesha keep my mind out of focus and also create all kinds of conflicts within. Ashantasya kutasukham. How can there be happiness for a person who does not enjoy that frame of mind which is characterized by shamaha, shanti, clarity, purity? Somebody said that why do you say that one cannot be happy if one doesn't have this kind of a mind? You can be happy if you have desirable sense objects around yourself. Isn't it that one or the shamaha, that abiding mind? Then Shankaracharya explains here, Indriyam vishaya trushnatah nivrittihi ya tat sukham vishaya trushna. So examining or analyzing the nature of happiness that we gain, when does a person feel happy? Sat trushnatah nivrittihi. When the mind becomes free from trushna or the craving, it is that when one experiences happiness. I cannot experience happiness as long as there is trushna or craving in my mind. That is called ashantam manah. The mind which is ashantam does not enjoy that peace. The mind which is some kind of craving, desires, that cannot enjoy, cannot be at peace with itself. Because that object of desire always pulls it away towards itself. So when do I feel happy? When that craving or strong desire is satisfied. So when I get something which I had been badly wanting, which I was craving for, when I get that object and experience that, at that time I experience happiness. Where does that happiness come from? Does the happiness come from the object? Is it because I did not have the object, So I was unhappy, and now that I have an object, therefore I am happy, and so does the happiness come from that object? It looks like, but not really. It is not that I was unhappy because the object was not there. I was unhappy because there was a craving in my mind. Mind was not at peace with itself. The object comes, that craving momentarily goes away. And therefore, mind becomes free from that craving or a desire. And therefore, now is at peace with itself. So the analysis here is, the Vedantic analysis is what gives me happiness. When my mind becomes free from desire or craving, then alone it becomes shantam, meaning it becomes quiet. It is at home with itself. Whenever the mind is demanding, whenever the mind is projecting, it is not at peace with itself, not at home with itself, and therefore it cannot be happy regardless of what it has. It can be surrounded by any number of objects, but when there is this projection and demanding within my mind, I cannot be happy. And even if there is nothing around me, if my mind is not demanding, not projecting, at peace with itself, I find myself happy without the necessity of anything around me. Now this is something that one has to actually observe and discover it for oneself. That it is the Trishna Rahityam, it is the freedom from Trishna or freedom from craving that really makes me happy. The happiness is freedom. Freedom and happiness are one. Freedom from what? Freedom from this Trishna. And what is the bondage therefore? What kind of bondage a person or man experiences, a man suffers from? The bondage only of that Trishna. That's what was said in the very first verse in this section. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan pasamanogatán atmaniyeva atmana tushta sthita prajnas tadochyate. So when one becomes totally free from this craving, which is there in the mind, and therefore it is Trishna Nivrutti, a freedom from the craving that really makes the mind happy. Or it is that karma or the craving that actually stifles the happiness which is naturally there in the mind. It is like the pool of water. If you throw pebbles in that, then you create waves in that. Suppose you don't disturb that water at all, it will be naturally quiet. And similarly also, if we don't disturb the pool of our mind, it will be naturally quiet. But you know what we do? We keep throwing pebbles. What pebbles? Of different desires, likes, dislikes. And you throw these pebbles in the mind becomes agitated. We feel restless. And then I want to be at rest. And therefore what I do is, I satisfy the desire. And the mind becomes free from desire. Momentarily it is at rest with itself, feels happy. You throw another pebble of another desire, becomes restless, agitated again. Do something else, get something else, again to make it free from that agitation. And thus the process goes on. But if you don't agitate the mind, if you don't throw the pebbles of these likes and dislikes or the cravings, then the mind will naturally remain present because it is the nature of mind. See, in Tattva Bodha we studied, what is it that the mind is made from? Mind is made up of sattva. Of the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas, from the sattva aspect of all the five elements, the mind is made. And the mind is naturally sattvic. The rajas and tamas, rajas means the agitation activity, tamas meaning dullness. These impurities are something that is added to the mind. That's the reason why they are asking us to remove them, then the mind becomes sattvic as original. And then it is happy. Ashantasya kutas sukham. Na trishnayam satyam sukhasya gandhamatram utpadyate ityartha. Dukhameva hi sa. And what is dukkham? Trishna itself is dukkham. That craving itself is dukkham. And freedom from craving is sukham. Na trishnayam satyam. As long as trishna is there, the craving is there in the mind. Sukhasya gandhamatram utpadyate. There cannot be even an iota of happiness, Shankaracharya says, as long as there is this craving in the mind. And therefore, so much emphasis on making the mind free from the hold of likes and dislikes, making the mind free. And we say pratipaksha bhavana. Whenever any of these disturbing thoughts arises in the mind, then how to deal with it? By what we call pratipaksha bhavana. by replacing there the opposite standpoint. Thus, if a desire arises in my mind, all right, I make the mind see what is it that it desires and what does it expect the object to give. And does the object really contain the happiness? And thus I make the mind see that really what it desires is not to come from outside, has to come from within. And when the mind understands, then it drops that desire. If there is anger, again, if there is greed, if there is pride, if there is resentment, if there is jealousy, as these things do arise. Somebody says, Swamiji, what can you do about these thoughts? The thoughts arise by themselves. We have no control over the thoughts. I don't know what will be the next thought in my mind. Suppose a thought of jealousy arises, what can I do? You can't do anything when the thought arises. What we can do is after the thought arises. Generally speaking, when a thought arises in passing, it doesn't create any damage. It comes and goes. But when the thought builds up, when the same thought repeats itself, then it gathers momentum like a storm, and then it can shatter. So when the thought is building up, that is when we address the mind and replace there the opposite standpoint, and that's how diffuse that thought. This is called Pratipaksha Bhavana. And this is how one has to constantly strive to make the mind clear. This value also is called Shaucham, cleanliness of the mind. Shaucham. Shaucham means cleanliness or purity of the mind, internal purity. As impurity arises, like detergent, you keep on cleaning it. Just as you wash your clothes with detergent, so constantly wash the mind with the detergent of Pratipaksha Bhavana. And thus, in these verses, the praise or extolling what we call prasada or the clarity of the mind. That's the first requirement. Ayuktasya kasmat buddhi nasti. How come the one who is ayukta, meaning one who does not enjoy that abiding mind, one whose mind is restless, agitated, how come buddhi nasti? How come he cannot have an abiding knowledge? If my mind is restless, if the mind is agitated, if the mind has impurities such as likes, dislikes, etc., how come in such a mind buddhi or the abiding knowledge cannot take place? Why is it so? That is answered in the verse 67. So the verse 67 is looked upon as giving the hetu or the reason for the theme of verse 66. Indriyanam hi chartam yan manon vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam vayu navam ivambhasi. Indriyanam, this theme has already been discussed earlier. But then it is presented here again to show why one cannot have an abiding knowledge as long as the mind is not abiding. It is necessary that mind should be abiding, and then alone the knowledge can be abiding. Thus what we call a sthita prajna, a man of abiding knowledge, naturally enjoys an abiding mind also. Indriyanam hi charatam, hi meaning yasmat, because charatam indriyanam, indriya meaning sense organs. Charatam means those which are wandering about. So when the sense organs, which sense organs? The sense organs of perception, the ears, the eyes, and so forth. So these organs of perception, when they are charatam, wandering, svasva visheshu pravartamananam, it is the nature of the sense organs to wander in their respective objects. When we say sense organs, we actually mean the mind only. Because sense organs really do not go out anywhere. It is the mind that grunts out through the sense organs and wanders in the respective sense objects. So now I may be dwelling upon some nice sound and music which I may want to listen to, or some very beautiful things like movies and shows which I may want to watch, or the mind may be dwelling upon some food, etc., which it wants to enjoy, or whatever. So these are the organs of the various shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. These are the various objects of the world. And the mind that dwells That is being said here, that when the sense organs are wandering in their respective sense objects, yan manah anuvidhiyate anupravartate. You see, we know that the sense organs of perception are made up of or are born of the sattva aspect of the five elements. This was discussed in Tattvabodha. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. These are the five elements. For the sattva aspect of the element Akasha, the organ of perception of hearing, the ears, they are made. Sattva aspect of element Vayu, the organ of perception of the faculty of touch. Sattva aspect of the element fire, the faculty of seeing. Sattva aspect of element water, the faculty of taste. Sattva aspect of element earth, the faculty of smell. So these organs of perception are made of the sattva aspect of the five elements. And how are the various objects of the world? Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, they are also made from the very same elements, but from the tamas aspect. So sound and touch and form, color, taste, smell that we experience are nothing but the objects made from the tamas aspect of the same five elements. And therefore, there is a natural affinity. Sense organs have natural affinity for sense objects, corresponding sense objects. The ears have a natural affinity with sound. Eyes have natural affinity with forms and colors. Tongue has a natural affinity for taste. And therefore, the sense organs will naturally be attracted towards the sense objects, which is okay. But then, if you permit your mind also, yan manaha anuvidhiyate, tattat indriya vishaya vikalpanena pravuttam, then mind also dwells upon those very sense objects. That yes, the sense organs may be attracted towards the sense objects. However, when the mind also runs after the sense organs, and mind also starts wandering in those sense objects, then indriyanam hichartam yan manon vidhiyate tadasya harati prajnam. That mind which is permitted to go after the sense organs and wander into those respective sense objects, such an extrovert mind, such a wandering mind, what does it do? Tadasya yatehe harati prajnam. It takes away prajna. Prajna means wisdom. Atma anatma vivekajam prajnam harati nashayati. Look at this. The mind, which along with the sense organs habitually wanders into the sense objects because of its fascination for the sense objects, such a mind, what does it do? It even robs away or destroys the very wisdom, the very knowledge. Atma anatma vivekajam prajnam. Even that knowledge born of the discrimination between the self and the non-self. So knowledge is in the intellect. Thus we recognize two faculties within ourselves. One is the knowing faculty, called the intellect. Other is the habitual faculty, called the mind. In this mind alone, various samskaras or impressions are there. In the mind alone, there are natural attractions and aversions. And therefore, that mind, the impulsive or the habitual faculty, runs into the sense objects through the passages of sense organs. And such a mind will prajnam harati. It will even take away or destroy wisdom or the knowledge that we may have gained. Katham, how does it do that? Question. Vayur navam iva ambasi. Vayu navam iva ambasi udake. Jigamishataam margat udhrutya unmarga yatha vayu navam pravartayati. Evam, just as vayu means the air, how the air also takes away or distracts a boat, a sailboat. So when a boat is sailing in the current of water and the strong current of wind, how that deviates or distracts that boat from its path. The boatman wants to take the boat on one way, in one direction, and how the strong current of wind actually deviates that boat from its path and takes it away elsewhere. Similarly also, this mind, like a strong current of wind, takes away the wisdom in the intellect. And Atma Vishayam Prajnam Hrutva Manah Vishaya Vishayam Kalpanam Karoti. Suppose you are studying Bhagavad Gita, you are dwelling upon that. What does this mind do? That mind deviates or distracts or uproots that mind, the intellect which is now dwelling upon Vedanta, and drags it and takes it to the respective sense objects. So Vishaya Vishayam Kalpanam Karoti. Instead of thinking about Atma and Atma Viveka, instead of thinking about Vedanta, I find myself thinking about various sense objects or various objects of my attachment and aversion. So this is what that habitual mind does. So it is necessary that we should have the set of sense organs which are disciplined. We should also have a mind which is also disciplined within our control. You cannot take these things for granted. Any amount of study, etc. will not really bless us if the mind does not enjoy the dispassion. We think that we can remain what we are. We can continue to do what we are as far as the indulgence in life is concerned. And still be Vedantins. You can be Vedantin as far as repeating the verses are concerned. But then, as far as really benefiting from the knowledge is concerned, it definitely requires a mind which enjoys the dispassion. So what is stressed here is making the mind free from its fascination for the sense objects. And we have to work constantly. Virajya Vishavrātāt dosha drushtya muhurmuhu. Again and again you have to make the mind see the dosha or the defects involved in the sense pleasure. अर्थस्य उपन्यस्तस्य अर्थस्य अनेकदा उपपत्तिम् उक्त्वा तं च अर्थम् उपपाद्य उपसंहरति. This very need for gaining a mastery over the mind, the very need for having our sense organs under the control, meaning by controlling we do not mean restraining them, but making free from that which distracts them. So Vedantins do not like restrainment of things because it is unnatural. What they wish is that the mind should naturally become abiding. The sense organs should naturally become abiding. And what is it that distracts the mind, which deviates the mind, which makes the sense organs run up to the sense object? It is these inherent attachments and aversions. It is those things which actually drag the mind away. So make the mind free from them and mind will be naturally abiding. So you can restrain the mind with an effort, which effort also is required. Damaha. So we require shamaha and damaha. Shamaha is mastery over the mind. Damaha is mastery over the sense organs. So it is going to take some time before we gain a mind which is abiding. In the meantime, we cannot permit the mind to indulge as it likes. We have to impose our values upon the mind. The values which have been derived from viveka, from the discrimination, and we have to therefore restrain if necessary the sense organs in order to restrain the mind. So damaha also is required, but most important thing is shamaha, is abidance of the mind. And therefore Lord Krishna essentially makes one point in all these verses, that wise man is the one who enjoys an abiding mind. Enjoy the mind which is at control. And the illustration was given, Yada samharate chayam kurmungani va sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratishtita. Just as a tortoise is able to withdraw at will its organs, so also the one who is able to withdraw the sense organs from the sense objects at will, tasya prajna pratishtita, he can gain what we call pratishtha prajna, meaning he can gain an abiding knowledge. So this theme, upasamharati, having given various reasonings, Lord Krishna now, having established the idea that now the discussion is concluded in the verse 68, Tasmad yasya mahabaho nigrahitani sarvashah indriyani indriyarthebhyah tasya prajna pratishtita. Tasmad, therefore, Mahabaho, Arjuna is addressed here as Mahabaho. Mahabaho means one having long and powerful arms. So Arjuna was a great warrior having very powerful arms and long arms, meaning a very strong person. So some commentators see here a significance in the Lord's addressing Arjuna as Mahabahu, as the one with long or strong arms. Just as a person with a strong arm can conquer the enemies and can gain the kingdom, so also here Arjuna, may you now apply your strength in conquering this enemy. So Bhagavad Gita really motivates Arjuna, Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita motivates Arjuna really to conquer this enemy. The external enemies are really incidental. The real enemies, these are internal enemies. So Kamayesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna Samudbhava, Mahashano Mahapapma, Vidhenamihi Vairanam. So this Kama and Krodha is considered to be the passion and anger, really are identified as the enemy. Vidhenamihi Vairanam. We know this as far as the Shaiva Marga is concerned. For the one who wants the well-being of oneself, for him it is enemy. For other people it may not be. Some people say, Swamiji, if you don't have this desire, then how can you make progress? So depends on what you mean by progress. What kind of progress you want to make? There has to be desire. But desire for knowledge, of course. When we say desire, it is only desire for the external pleasures. That's what the mind is to be made free from. And so the Lord says, Tasma, Hey Mahabahu, Arjuna, may you exercise your strength in conquering this enemy. Yasya indriyani indriyarthebhyah sarvashah nigrahitani tasya prajna pratishtita. Yasya yatehe. This yati means one who is striving. Yati means yatnashilah, one who is striving. For a seeker of knowledge who is striving for him. Sarvashah, sarva prakaraihi, manasadi bhedehi, in every way. It is not only enough that we have control over one or two organs. We have 10 of them. And even one organ, suppose one organ is simply out of control, even that itself is quite enough to drag the mind away. And therefore, then what to talk of 10 sense organs? As Shankaracharya gives an example in Viveka Chudamani. Panchad Shabdavidif Panchabhireva Pancha Panchatvamapuhu Swagunena Buddhaha. He says these creatures which have only one sense organ of perception which is predominant. Shabdavidhi, so gives Kuranga, Matanga, Patanga, Meena, Bhangaha. So Shankaracharya quotes the illustration of 5 animals or 5 creatures. Kuranga meaning a deer, Matanga an elephant, Patanga a moth, Meena a fish, and Bhanga a honeybee. So these creatures have only one organ of perception very strong. Deer is supposed to have a strong perception. Faculty of perception is a reference to sound. It just loves sound, it seems. Elephant loves touch. And this moth loves form, the color. And the fish has a predominant faculty of eating. And the bhanga, the honeybee, the predominant faculty of smell. So they are exploited. These attraction that they have, fascination that they have with reference to one organ of perception, even becomes the cause of their death. Then what to talk of man who has all the 5 organs of perception very strong? And thus, thereby only telling us the need for gaining making the mind free from these fascinations. So, sarvashah, sarvaprakarai, manasadi bhedehi, and therefore sense organs along with the mind, when indriyani, indriyarthebhyah, sarvashah nigrahitani, for this yati or for the seeker, when all the sense organs are nigrahitani, are withdrawn or restrained from the respective sense objects, tasya prajna pratishtita. Tasya, for that person, prajna pratishtita, then that person gains an abiding knowledge. It is not merely by control of the sense organs of the mind that one gains abiding knowledge. One can gain knowledge only by Shastra. by Shastra Vichara. That's only minds. But then, when is Vichara possible? Only when the mind is available. So an abiding mind is required even for Vichara, an abiding mind is required for abidance of knowledge. So all these verses, Lord Krishna emphasized the need for a control over one's mind, meaning mastery over one's mind, and a control over one's sense organs. Then alone one can gain, when the knowledge in oneself can abide. Okay. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.